Just a couple bad weather fans representing New York, talking all things sports. Man, what could go wrong? We got Alex, who's a fan of the Knicks, and Mike of the Nets. The yin-yang of the tri-state, place your bets on the Yankees, Giants, Mets, or Jets. Yeah, you should listen if they're sparking your interest. If you made a vow to your team, don't break it. Bad weather fans is the relation.
That's right, this is Bad Weather Fans, episode number 223. Mike Biseglia, Alex Vanessowitz. And we have a special guest on the pod this evening. It'll be Dexter Henry, sports anchor, New York Post Sports, also at SNY TV. He does great work chatting with a lot of Knicks and Nets people. We would love to have him here on the podcast. Knicks and Nets, obviously in their offseason. We're waiting for a little free agency to begin. And while that happens, NBA Finals right now, it's the Dallas Mavericks and Celtics with the C's up 2-0 on Dallas with Kristaps Porzingis. We'll see what happens if he plays. Alex, when people are listening to this, maybe they'll have more info. How are you doing, man? Good evening.
I'm doing well. I'm not surprised about Porzingis, and neither is any Knick fan, for that matter. Any honest Knick fan. There was a lot of Knick fans that wanted him to come back last offseason. They were over it. I wasn't over it. Hurt the whole playoffs. Now he comes back, and now he's got some ankle ligament injury. And they say it's serious, but he's day to day. And Dave Portnoy had a great tweet where he said, I've been looking into this injury that nobody knows what it is. And I can't tell if he has a paper cut or if he's going to die. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what's going on. And, it's just typical Porzingis. And honestly, I just feel kind of bad for the guy at this point. I'm past the point of like hating him for wanting to leave and demanding the trade and all that and lying to the Knicks fans. But I just feel kind of bad. But either way, I don't want to talk about Porzingis. He's, whatever. He's old history. He's what's the term? He's old news. Thank you.
What's the old history, old news? Yeah.
Old history, old news. Yeah, Hartenstein, is getting, the Thunder are getting hot and heavy for him. And honestly, he fits perfect with them. And they may overpay. They got a bunch of guys on rookie contracts. Jake Fisher told us on the last episode of Bad Weather Fans, episode 222, that with the draft being so close to free agency and before free agency, it could lead to a lot of things that change, and trades and things that happen really quickly. So you might think like the Knicks are gonna sign Hartenstein, and well, he didn't say OG. He said OG's probably staying, but Hartenstein, he said, things could change because of that. So we'll see, And Dennis Schroeder says he wants to stay with the Nets, so that's what's going on over here.
Yeah, I mean, Schroeder's got 1 year left on his deal, so he will be here unless the Nets, pull off some trade and he's a piece that gets dealt. And Hartenstein obviously is a very good Knick, so could be a very good Knick for the long-term future. But money talks, man. And if somebody's going to give you a lot more money, that's how it is. As much as I hate the Knicks, somebody said, hey, you're in the NBA, you can make $1 million a year playing for the Brooklyn Nets or $20 million a year playing for the Knicks. I play for the Knicks. And this is not just life, man.
Right.
It's business. It's just
you go back to being a Net fan after you make your money. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, this is a true story. I'll say I've never told publicly, but I was offered $2.2 million to a Knicks podcast. No,
yeah, sure.
But you understand. I mean, I'm trying to make it in terms of like for us. Obviously, it's a little bit different. But you understand it, and I think Hartenstein obviously loves it here. He loves playing with the Knicks teammates, the crowd. I think he enjoyed it and really liked his time. But we'll see. We'll see. Uncertainty there. One thing's for sure. Mikal Bridges needs to stop trying to even compete with Josh Hart in any form of trolling or making fun of the Knicks. It doesn't work. And it's just like
I agree.
At least he tried, I guess. And it was just so predictable, right? Because he knows what happened with this whole roommates podcast and how he went on there, and I've said my piece about it, how I thought it was really pathetic stance from him. So I think here he's trying to make this whole like joke about, oh, come to the Nets, and it just was an epic failure where you just knew it would not work. And I'll just kind of read the tweet for anybody that did not see it for
Instagram. I think it was
Instagram.
Yeah.
But as I scroll it up, basically Josh Hart has a photo of him because he's been doing, ESPN, ABC with the finals now. And Josh Hart wrote, "Might quit my day job." In the post is a picture of him with a microphone. And Mikal Bridges said, come to the Nets? Question mark. And then Hart responded, "Are you okay? If they have you hostage, just blink and we'll save you. And I'll save you. We'll save you." It was like, oh, geez,
Another loss for Bridges. Yeah,
Uh,
Hart just is the troll
sports,
master, and he's like his big brother. He's 2 years older. You know what I mean? He's like that guy for him. The mentor for Bridges, and it's just like
isn't
they're
more the same. And I mean, I get it. They're having
they're
fun
messing with
with
each
it, but
other.
he just
But
can't. It's like me and you when we get on these Twitter spouts. Like
yeah,
anytime you have something for me, you know what I'm going to respond with. Just going to make you look silly, and it's very similar.
yeah, I agree. I agree. I see what you're saying as a Nets fan. Seeing that, you're just like, it's cringe. It's cringe worthy. You're
It's
just
a
like,
little cringy.
ugh,
Oh, God.
just come on, man, just shut up, dude. Like,
Well, I don't mind him giving him shit, but it
right?
just was like,
Come
I don't
harder,
know,
right? Yeah,
something
be
better,
better.
something better. I don't know. I don't know what it would be. Trying to think off the top of my head, like what would work. I mean, it
Yeah,
was crazy. If you saw Game One of the NBA Finals, the halftime coverage of that was so bad.
it was like
When
12
he,
seconds. Yeah,
they're like, when we come back, Josh Hart with expert analysis on the first half. They don't even show him. It's a video of a highlight where he says something. 10 seconds later, they're at break. I mean, it just not that you're coming there for really great analysis, but
right.
when when it's legit 25 seconds total of content, that stands out.
It's a waste of time.
Does.
Yeah, just don't
All
do it
ads.
at all. Yeah,
Yeah, just play ads for 15 minutes.
it reminds me of the old Family Guy thing with the weatherman, where he's like, "We'll go back to the weatherman's forecast," and he goes, "It's gonna rain," and that's it, and that's the end of
Yeah,
the.
exactly.
So
Well, that's where we
anyway,
are. We'll keep an
that's where
eye
we are now.
on all off-season news. Kind of once the finals ends, I think you'll see a lot more pickup and traction there.
Right. You can negotiate now right after the finals with your players, or I think that's what Jake said. Fisher
Yeah.
said last episode, I believe. So there, we got a lot of information from him. There's going, thanks for listening, and everybody download this episode, follow, like everything, everywhere, available on all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, everything. But
All right.
it's very exciting, man. Very exciting. The off season's coming. Finals are heating up, and Dexter Henry is going to break it all down for us.
Dexter Henry, sports anchor, New York Post Sports, SNY, WFAN, Info Sports Net. Will join us now here on Bad Weather Fans. It's Bad Weather Fans, and as promised, Dexter Henry, New York Post Sports, SNY TV, and we were in our pre-production meeting, and I was like, "We're talking really good sports stuff. We're talking good hoops." I was like, "I think I should hit record." So that's what we're doing. So Dexter, thanks for popping on with us. We appreciate it and all the great work that you're doing. So thanks for coming on the podcast, man. Looking
No,
forward.
man, thanks for having me. I mean, this is a unique podcast. You don't get a Knicks fan and a Nets fan in the same place and get to talk to them. You guys do such a great job with that. So I had to come through, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate that. So from your end, because you interact and all the great work you do with the New York Post and then your show with SNY TV as well. What's your experience? And you just be honest here. Tough hit hard hitting question right away. Better
Yeah.
experience with the Knicks fans or better experience with the Nets fans when they're coming on your show?
Oh, when they're coming on my show,
Yeah.
like people coming on the shows. Yeah, this is tough. I have to pick one. I have to pick one.
Or just in general. Just in general.
Oh, like so.
Yeah, we'll do that.
And I was telling you guys a bit of this before we started, right? Like my experience is unique because earlier in my career, shout out to Bob Windrum, I started working for Nets Daily. And I did a lot of, like, when the Nets first moved to Brooklyn. So that was huge for me just in terms of getting reps and doing stuff on camera and also just really connecting with a fan base. And Nets fans were great to me. So I have nothing ever bad to say about Nets fans because seriously, like they were great. That community was so strong and they really supported a lot of the work I did. And, anytime I would go to games, it was great. And so even when it was found out by some of those Nets fans from Nets Daily, they found out that I grew up a Knicks fan. Some people took it really strongly and were like, "Oh man, like, I can't believe that." And others didn't. Like the Knicks community, I guess, has been through the work I've done the last couple of years they've been fantastic too. I'm really plugged in with a lot of people in that community, just like the Nets too. So they've been great too. I can't say the Knicks community though. I will say they have a long history of passion, and if they don't agree with you or take, they'll really let you know. Um, the
That's
Nets
true.
community, I think it's two different. Yeah, yeah, and I'm not saying that with any shade. Like
Yeah.
that's cool. I think that the difference in the fan base is the Nets community. When I think about the fan base, they've been, I don't want to say tortured because that might be a little bit harsh, but I think they're just tired because they felt like they built some things. And I'm talking about in the last 11 years, built some things and then didn't work. And so I sense a frustration with that fan base where they're at now. Mike, you could probably tell me if I'm wrong on that,
Yeah.
but I still do talk a lot of the times to fans. Like when I go to games and stuff, I talk to fans like who are season ticket holders on both sides. And there's a real frustration with the Nets fan. That's kind of like, where are we going? What's the direction? But I would say equal love for me, man. Like no hate on either side. Um, Knicks fans are probably a little more intense. I will say that. And Alex, I know you're nodding with that. A little more intense,
Yeah.
but it's all love, man. It's all love. So it's been good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about before the show. Like I started off, I'm not my whole life story on Twitter and how I got on and everything like that. That doesn't matter. But coming from 2019 with the Nets and the Knicks when the rivalry really started heating up, I know it heated up when they got to Brooklyn, but then it cooled and then it heated up in 2019 with the 42 win 6 seed parade that the Nets had. And so 2019 hit, and I was just going back and forth with Nets fans at how the Knicks are going to sign Durant. But then once Durant got down, I said, I'm out, forget about it. Then I was fighting with Knicks fans how I didn't want Durant. You know what I mean? And then it's just, of course, every Knicks fan doesn't think they ever wanted Durant, of course, now, of course. But
Now revisionist history.
yeah, exactly. But the point is that with Nets fans and Nets Daily and Pooch or Matt Brooks and those guys, and like we butted heads a lot and like went to the point of like we were like arguing a lot and getting into it. And that's how I met Mike on Twitter. The fans of the podcast know that story. And since then, like me and those guys, like we've all became cool because it's like we sort of like argued so much on Twitter to the point where it's like, like, all right, man, like whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like I respect you, you respect me, and we, it is what it is. So, at the end of the day, we're all New Yorkers and, we're all fans of basketball teams. It's not really, real life stuff here.
Right. It's not real life beef. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly on that front. And I think that's what, at the end of the day, it's all about. And, you had asked me, Dexter, coming back before, and I want to answer this question and then let you react to it, but about
Yeah.
if I put the blame on Kyrie and I put or Durant and what went south in the 7-11 era, I think twofold. One, when they had Harden and everything was clicking and they lost that Buck series. Like Knicks fans know, when you have injuries, it hurts your chances. And that team was set up to win that year in particular. After that, I would say it's easy to put the blame on, in my view, on Kyrie. I just think after seeing Kyrie and Luka play together, not enough been talked about that they weren't as good of a match together actually on the court than
Mhm.
both incredibly superstar talented players, right? As good as it gets. But for whatever reason, chemistry wise, it wasn't, people will forget just when they actually played together, it wasn't as special. And we didn't see it a lot, but it wasn't as special, I think, as we all had anticipated it to be. And I don't know. I really don't think that chemistry between the two guys, and I think you're seeing it now that they're maybe probably not even really friends. I think their chemistry together wasn't as good as people think it was. And it's like, oh, Kyrie did this, oh, Durant did that. But there's a little bit of, I don't know if it really jived as well as we all think or think it could have been.
Yeah, you got me thinking about that, and I think about people I've talked to around the Nets and things of that nature. I know there was some frustration from people in the fact that people maybe wanted Kevin Durant to be a little bit more vocal. I feel like that's never been his leadership style.
Yeah.
He wasn't going to make Kyrie get the vaccine. I do think some of that stuff derailed the chemistry of the team. To your point, though, Mike, I would one of the first sporting, I think it might have been the second sporting event I went to as a fan after the pandemic. We were trying to start to come back outside and enjoy sports again. I was at Game 5 of that series against the Bucks where Durant pours in 49,
Yeah.
and I almost didn't go to that game, which was crazy. A friend of mine hit me up and was like, "Yo, Dex, I got tickets. You want to go?" And I was kind of at home. I was like, and I was like, last minute, I was like, I'm glad I went. It's one of the best playoff performances I've ever got to see personally, just as a fan, like not working or anything.
Right.
And the Nets, you remember that game because Harden was hobbled. Harden had just got injured. There's no Kyrie. What's frustrating, I think, for the Net fan is you never really got to see that team go through. I truly believe if they were healthy, they would have beat the Bucks. I really believe that. And I think they would have disposed of Atlanta in the next round and go to the finals. And it's going to be a big what if sliding doors moment with that Net team because oh man, they were just so close in terms of being there. And when they were together, you saw in that first round, they looked like they looked pretty good. And they didn't even have that much time playing together. That's what was scary.
Yeah, and I think to what you had previously said to kind of bring it back full circle, why Net fans are kind of feeling like, it's that they
Yeah.
were so close to finally seeing something that the franchise has never done. So now when you're going through these conversations and debates about like, well, should it be this, Trae or this pick? And it's just like you have to start somewhere. So you're starting again from scratch in a sense. But when you're that close and it was that bad, it's like this ultimate frustration pool of I didn't see it
Buzzkill.
fail
Yeah.
because they weren't good enough. I saw it fail
Right.
because of the most bizarre reasons. Oh, like, there's be a global pandemic. There's going to be issues over a vaccine. I mean, it's just like all of
Fighting
it.
with the mayor, the whole thing. Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
to
Right.
like, is Noah Clowney a trade chip? And you're just like, all right, this is
Here
our
we
new
go.
deal. I mean, it's just so I think that kind of to your point, Dexter, that like soul being ripped out of the fans.
And
Yeah.
do you think
That's the
that
vibe, the vibe
yeah.
I've got from the fans. Sorry, Alex. Go ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah. Do you think that compares to how the Knicks were this year with the injuries and how you just felt like, for lack of a better term, half pregnant? Like, you're just like, we got all these guys, but like every time we're together, we look amazing. And then, it just is never together. And it just, one injury after another to the point where you're just like, oh my God, can we just end this?
I think time is going to tell how the Knicks fan feels about that stuff because I think what happens a lot of times in sports guys is you you take this Knicks year, which was a really good year for the team. Um, Obviously how it ends is disappointing, but I think if you're being realistic about it, you're probably this was good. The problem going forward, Alex, is that I think a lot of times fans will say, and this goes to Mike's point too, right? Even when the Nets lost that series, you're like, oh, they'll get back. They'll be
Right.
back there. They'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And with the Knicks, sometimes you never know. You don't know if that was your chance. Do I think the Knicks will be better depending on what moves they do, or should they be back? Should. I mean, look at that same playoff run. The Atlanta Hawks were in the Eastern Conference Finals. They have never been the same since that, right? You never know in sports. And I think now in sports, particularly NBA, which we all love, it's you hope your run is 4 to 5 years. You hope you could do what the Celtics have done. People clown the Celtics for not having won, but like they've been to however 6 conference finals and 1 NBA finals, and looks like they may finally break through here. But like sometimes you don't know if you're going to get back, and maybe we never see the Knicks look as good as they did in January when they had OG and Randall, and they looked like they were one of the best teams in the league. So time will tell because if the Knicks don't win after this, then fans are going to maybe feel a little bit like the Knicks, like this is some Knicks stuff. Like they finally had a good team, they
Right.
put it together, and then that's how the Net fan is feeling. And then this thing happened. We had all the injuries. We never really got to see it. To some degree, that's really I think what's more frustrating for the Nets fan than that previous older aging team they tried to build around Darren Williams and Joe Johnson and then get the Boston old stars in there. This was more frustrating because you had guys in their prime towards the end of the prime, and then like you never really saw that team on the court. That's what you don't hope for the Knicks, Alex, because if that happens, then you guys ask me to come back in a year and the Knicks are anywhere near there, you're gonna be like, man, like
What
it's
happened?
I think
Yeah.
that's that's the
Yeah.
crushing thing in sports, but nothing's guaranteed. You're not guaranteed to get back.
No, and
You're
I
not
get that. And
guaranteed to get
like
back.
when you go from the mellow years, the 54 wins, you're like, all right, we'll
Hmm.
have another year in us. You didn't think it was over. You knew there was an old team, but you thought you had at least another year, and it didn't work out. I don't know
Yeah.
how big of a baseball fan you are, but 2015, the Mets are in the World Series, and you're
I'm a
like,
Mets
oh, we'll be
fan.
back. You're
Yeah.
a Mets fan?
Yeah.
You said? Yeah. So
I'm
you
Nets fan.
see,
Yep.
yeah. And then the next year they get to the wild card game, they lose it, they get shut out, and then it was all downhill from there. So
Yeah.
it's like you think as a fan you have all this time, and as you get an older fan, you understand that things don't always happen, and that's
Mhm.
what also makes this offseason for the Knicks so huge when it comes to Jalen
Yeah.
Brunson, when extension Randall maybe get traded, maybe not get traded, maybe gets an extension, maybe not. Hartenstein's going to get a bag. OG needs to get a bag. Like, how do you think?
Mhm.
How do you see all of that playing out? And do you think that they keep everybody and run it back because running it back might be the best idea and the easiest way to compete next season?
I think running it back is the best idea, actually.
Okay.
And I know that differs from when I talk to other people who cover the team, they are more aligned in that mindset. Fans, you're gonna have the fans that are like, they've got to go add another star next to
But
put next
who?
to Jalen Brunson.
Yeah.
See, Alex, that's the question. Who is that? It's and I'm sure we'll get to the Nets in their offseason too, right? But like, who is that? Who are you gonna get? So sometimes I'll pose that question, and people will say to me, "Oh, well, they should go get Paul George." I like Paul George. I've always liked Paul George as a player, one of the best two-way players in the league. Paul George is now 33 going on 34. He's an aging guy. He does not fit the timeline. He does a lot of things I like that could help the Knicks. He's also never healthy. And what's the point in why would you do that? There's no point in doing that. To me, if you're the Knicks, you got to bring back OG, right?
Yeah.
Injuries with him is a little concern. You wonder if you can get the price down a little bit more. Maybe you get him sub 35 million per year. I don't know. But even if you do pay 35, which is what a lot of people project he'll get, you're fine. I'd love to see them bring back Hartenstein. Another thing I would do, Alex, if I was running the team, I would look to try to move on from Mitchell Robinson because I think the team functions better with Hartenstein. All the advanced numbers support that. I know you like the depth, but I like
Yeah.
Hartenstein, and I think you can get a younger center in the draft somebody to back up Hartenstein. I would maybe try to add some more depth. That's what my focus would be if I'm a Knicks fan. Get more depth and also have Tibbs hopefully play a little bit more to the depth. I think they could use another young wing, another big if they wanted. I think continuity can. I'm a big believer in continuity. I think it helps a ton. I think it's very underrated in the sports. I think continuity matters. I think what the Knicks have been doing is fine. Do they need to get another star? It would be nice, but who's there? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to hear Karl Anthony Towns. Nope.
No, it's
I
just
don't want to
Randall.
hear
He's
Zach
Randall. It's the
LaVine.
same person. Yeah. It's just more
And
money.
here's the
Yeah.
thing. I think Randall's fine. I
Mhm.
really do. Randall looked good this season
He
before he
did.
got hurt. I know what everybody's
In
gonna
January.
say.
Yeah.
Dex, it was January. We need to see it in the playoffs. But I think when you look at his playoff situations, the first year he's playing Atlanta, he's the only guy on the team that could score. Alfred Payton was the starting point guard. Okay, he had no help on that team. The next against Miami last year, he's injured. Right? I'm not. You play. You got to go out there and perform. I get that, the whole nine. But we haven't seen a healthy Julius Randle in the postseason with as much talent as he has around him now. I think playing with an OG, playing with a Brunson, who's clearly the man on the team, I think that stuff matters. I'd like to see that Knicks team healthy because I think they know their roles, they have an identity, and I think continuity is going to matter. In fact, I'm going to go on. I'm going to probably. I would wait till seeing the offseason, but if the Knicks keep things with continuity goes, I would be very high on picking them to come out the East. I think they have the moxie. I think they have the understanding. I think they'll be hungry to dethrone Boston. Obviously you got to be healthy. A lot of things got to go right, but I think if they have the continuity, I don't think it's a bad thing. How do you feel? Because you're the Knicks fan, Alex. Do you think is there a guy you want him to go get? Like, how do you feel about it?
The one guy that I'm all about running it back. I love Mitchell Robinson, Hartenstein as two starting centers. You never have a backup center on the floor ever. Like that's the thing that makes this team so dangerous. And OG is almost as good. I don't want to say almost as good as Paul George. Paul George is the Hall of Famer, but he can do a lot of what Paul George does and is better defender. That foul line jumper was money all playoffs, all the season that he was healthy, I should say. And I want them to run it back. The one guy that I would trade for if I'm the Knicks, and it would be dealing Randall, would be getting Lauri Markkanen because I think he would fit perfectly alongside Brunson and all the other guys to be driving kick. And that's the only player that right now that I would do because it wouldn't cost as much as a Booker, which doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? Like financially.
Right.
So that's it. That's for me. Otherwise, I'm running back.
There's one player I would trade for. I should have added, but it's not going to happen. You probably know where I'm going, Mike. You know where I'm going with this. Mikal
Oh,
Bridges will be the perfect fit. But I can tell you what, it is not happening. I tried telling you it's not happening. There's no way the Nets are making that trade with the Knicks. I just don't see it happening. The Knicks would have to overpay and blow them out the water. I don't see it happening. It makes a ton of sense for the Knicks. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, if you were
Laurie marketing, I'm not crazy about. So it sounds to me, Alex, you're not a Randall guy. You want Randall
I'm
out
not a
there.
Randall guy at all.
Not a
Like
Randall
I
guy.
was when they got him. I celebrated when they got him in 2019. That was part of
Yeah.
the whole thing. I was like, yeah, we got a guy who 20, whatever was he, 24, 25, that like 23 and 10, 12, whatever he was, whatever his numbers were. I was like pumped up. But then when it came to the Hawks series, I gave him the pass for. But then the next year with the shut the F up and the getting fans kicked out of the game and dogging it and getting into it with teammates, I was just like, I'm done with this guy. And then he, flopped in the playoffs the year before, and you said it was injuries, but he did have his best game when he came back from injury. So that kind of like I was like, is that really an excuse? You know what I mean? And but in January when OG came, it just clicked, and I was like, this is the guy. Like, okay, like now this is the guy that I can get behind. And I would go for. And I know Mike wants to say this as well, that I don't think Mikal Bridges to the Knicks will ever happen. And we had Jake Fisher on last episode, and he said it as well, as the Knicks are probably going to keep OG. And when OG's here, Bridges doesn't really work. I don't know, Mike, what do you feel about that?
Well, I can't imagine that Sean Marks would cement his legacy as the guy that put the Knicks over the top to win a championship. Would just be cruel and would destroy the fan base. I don't think the fan base is super high on Mikal right now for a lot of different reasons, but to put him in the Knicks where he would succeed so well too, because he would be with his best friends. He'd be not the focal point of the offense. I mean, he'd be, third option, whatever. He could just do his thing. And, kind of like Mikal has got, I feel bad in the sense of, the Nets were, hey, Mikal, can you be the number one option for this team? And he's not a number one option, but he was the number three option in Phoenix, and they did go to the NBA Finals. So people have to remember, if you put Mikal in a spot where he doesn't have to log 40 to 44 minutes and do everything, he can be a great contributor. The irony is, yeah, he would be the perfect fit for the Knicks, but you would have to be like multiple first round picks on. But I mean, basically just give us everything. Because for me to just that would be the ultimate punishment to see Mikal Bridges win the title for the Knicks. It would be like, let me, torture you, and then.
But at least you got Julius Randle, right? Like,
it doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
No, I would be stunned. I mean, Jake Fisher said it too, who's even more plugged in than me. But I do talk to people and know some people around the Nets, and I was told I'd be stunned. They'd be stunned if that had happened. And to your point on Bridges, Mike, Brian Lewis said this to me on an actual interview. He had told me this before, that he actually said it like on the record. He said, look, the team wants to not build around Bridges, but they want to build with Bridges. They really like him as a foundational piece. I think Bridges is a really good player. I think there's a world where his game ascends, and he could be a good number two option. Mm-hmm. You're right. Right now, he's probably best as a three. I do think he could elevate to a two, but he's probably suited as a three. But he's a great two-way player, and a lot of teams will be lucky to have him. But I think I think the Nets do want to get another star to pair with him. It's just about who they go for and how they. I don't like the options for the Nets either, if I'm being honest, about who they can go for.
Any the Darius Garland, the Donovan Mitchells, like any of this feels like it's a remote possibility, or when it's all said and done, it's just like, well, we'll run it back and hope that we have development with guys like Noah Clowney and bounce back here from Mikal. Does it feel like the Nets are going? Like you said before, Net fans are just like, please pick a lane. Do you think the Nets? Let me ask this: do you think the Nets at this point even know what lane they want to pick, or they're just kind of still waiting to hear what happens?
Look, man, I hope they know what lane they want to pick, right? like I hope they know that, because but that is the major question for the Nets this offseason. What is the direction? Okay, a lot of Nets fans I've talked to, and also people in the media, have said they like to hire the coach. They like Jordy Fernandez. I personally was a little bit surprised that Sean Marks got another chance to rebuild this, to hire, what is this, his fourth head coach in 8 years. I was a little shocked at that because you don't generally see general managers get that kind of opportunity. But I think that's the key. What's the lane? The problem for the Nets, right? Which everybody knows, as a Net fan, they don't control their own draft picks right now.
Yeah.
They're in the worst situation possible. Now, the last time they were in this situation, you got to give Sean Marks a lot of credit. He made great moves, right? Great development in terms of what Kenny Atkinson was able to do, who never should have been fired, but that's a whole other story. Also, flipping great assets, right? D'Angelo Russell, Brook Lopez, turning those things into things that the Nets could use, and then drafting pretty well with that. The problem, the biggest thing that I forget it is, I always forget this no matter what I talk about the Nets. I shouldn't as a journalist. I forget that Ben Simmons is on the team, and I forget that Ben Simmons is hurting them so much. Yeah. Mike, he is an expiring contract, and the Nets really can't do anything with him, or get anything for him. He's a $40 million expiring contract. Fine, get him off the books next year. It helps you. It's all good. But what are you going to get for him if you even traded him? Nothing. So you might as well just wait for him to come off the books. Here's what I'll say to what you asked me. I think that you're definitely going to hear what you hear about the Nets in the next couple of weeks regarding particularly Donovan Mitchell is going to be really interesting. He's the guy I think that has maybe the most shot to come here, because the question is, does he really want to stay in Cleveland or not? And Cleveland has some decisions to make. I think they got to either trade Garland, or they got to trade somebody in the backcourt or somebody in the front court. Garland, you got to trade Allen. You're not going to, or Allen, because you're not trading Mobley. You probably want to keep him and Mitchell together if he stays. If Donovan Mitchell tells him he doesn't want to leave, I got to think Brooklyn's at the top of his list. He'd probably want to go play for the Knicks still, which everybody knew he did before. But I think that ship has sailed. I don't think that's happening anymore with the Knicks. I think that's a ship to sail. Brooklyn is a nice destination for him if he wants to get to a big market. The other name I think you'll hear that'll pop up, and I don't know how you feel about this. I think you may hear some Trae Young, because I do think Trae Young will be seriously shopped. I don't know this for sure, but it wouldn't shock. I think Atlanta's got to trade one of those two guys. I'd be stunned if one of them don't get moved this offseason. I'd be stunned. You would think it's actually more likely DeJounte. You heard the DeJounte talks before the trade deadline. I don't know how I like DeJounte as a player, but does he really move the needle for you next to Bridges?
Yeah.
Well, the Hawks also gave up a ton of picks for him too. Right. You're going to turn around and trade him after trading all these picks for him. I know Trae Young is their guy, but you just gave up all your future picks for Murray, and now you're going to trade him. It just doesn't, for what? For Ben Simmons? What do you? I don't understand that. So maybe it's probably Trae Young, if anybody, and that would spark the Knicks Nets rivalry once again. By the way,
do you want Trae Young though, Mike?
I mean, at the right price, in the sense back, it would be fun. But I don't want to, essentially, as much fun as it would be to have Trae here, to have Mikal, and win 46 to 50 games and not be what we just saw, and be competitive and have a fun run. It would be a lot of fun. But I know deep down inside, if this team wants any chance of ultimately winning a championship, they have to ride it out. They got to keep those Suns picks. They got to keep that Mavs picks, and they just have to draft well and make shrewd decisions with drafting young talent and developing that. That to me is why it really stung too when they didn't give up, and all these reports of Mikal back to Houston, get the picks back. At least control your own destiny and be bad the right way, not this kind of.
I was told. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was told regarding that. I was told that there was those reports that came out about 4 first rounders from Mikal. I was told that was not true. That was not anywhere close to what was offered. That doesn't mean Houston wasn't interested, just to be clear what I'm saying. But the 4 first-round picks that was put out there, I was told by somebody who knows, never was that many picks, not even close to that many picks. Yeah. Now, I understand why you've been disappointed if you can get it. I happen to agree with you, Mike. I think that's the best path for the Nets. They kind of got to eat this. They kind of need to be bad for a couple of years. I know it hurts for you. It probably makes Alex happy. I get all that. You guys are in different places. But I think the best thing is to almost do what they did years ago. Eat this. Keep the Suns picks. The Suns are a mess. That's the best thing. I think that's the best hope for the Nets. The Suns are a mess, right? There's nothing but downward stock for that team. And who knows? They might be such a mess that you might be able to trade for Devin Booker. And then that would not be bad.
Give them their picks back and get Devin Booker and give them Ben Simmons to match the salary, and you never know. But that's kind of crazy.
I don't like that Suns team. I think they're a mess, but I do think the Nets plan should be you got to embrace the full on rebuild.
Yeah.
Especially if you think you have the coach to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I don't know what other assets you got to trade in. Maybe it's Dorian Finney-Smith. You move him this summer.
Yeah.
And see what you can get. Because a team would definitely, a team could use them like OKC. They would love to use like a Dorian Finney-Smith. Could you go send them there? Simmons just hurt so much. It's just, but you just got to let it go. You just got to let it ride out. Let the $40 million come off the books. You got to let it ride out, right, guys? Do you invest in Claxton? That's a big question for the Nets this summer. Everything I hear is that they do want to bring him back. They do want Claxton back in the fold. I like Claxton. Think he's a good young center, but is he going to be there when you're ready to win? I knew I could see your face. That's what you're thinking.
Is he a trade chip though for the future? You know what I mean? If he's paid okay, and he can match salaries and he's a talented player. You know what I mean? Maybe you could mix and match something there. We always talk about on this podcast about Ben Simmons, like dating back to last year, maybe the year before. I'm not sure when I started saying it was the Nets should have stretched provisioned Ben Simmons and just got him out of here, because it was just, he was never going to come back. He was going to come back a couple games and get injured and, trick Net fans. Mike's not going to get tricked again, but he was a little tricked last year into getting excited, but not that he thought he'd be Ben Simmons again, but like he'll be a productive player and give us something, give you something, not us. Jeez, wash my mouth out. But, just something like that. Like, I do think it would have made sense to stretch him out like the Knicks did with Joakim Noah and just get him off the books and pay a little salary and like not have this albatross of $40 million that you can't do anything with.
You can't do anything with him. And I know, Mike, I don't know you that well, but I know you got to be annoyed if you see any workout offseason videos of Ben Simmons getting shots up this summer, because nobody wants to see that anymore. Like, we're all tired of seeing it. We've seen it. So I'm tired for the Nets. First of all, I hate offseason workout videos. I hate them.
Mitchell Robinson was the king of that too, man. Mitchell Robinson had a bunch of them.
He was showing the threes, and then he never shot him in a game. Please, like, we don't need that. We don't need that anymore. We're done. Ben Simmons, best case scenario. I don't even know. I was about to say something. I don't even know what the best case scenario is for him. Yeah. Maybe it's that he comes and plays well and he gets his value up a bit, and some team that has a ton of cap space may want to take a flyer on him. It'll give you a first. I don't know why anybody give you a first for him right now, but if they do, I guess that's the best case scenario. I really think you just got to like ride it out, let that money come off the books, and think about. If you're reasonably competitive by the trade, like let's say the Nets, because people forget the Nets were, what was it, mid-December, they were 3 games over 500, and then it all collapsed.
Yes.
Right. If you're somewhere competitive like that this year, and then you can, assuming you don't sell off Dorian Finney-Smith in the summer, or you can trade him, or I know some Nets fans won't be happy with me, but it's Cam Thomas. Do you trade him? Somebody who's looking for a guy who could be a spark plug scorer off their bench. Those are ways for you to get some more picks. And yes, you will bottom out. Yes, you will be really bad because nobody will be left on that team. But you got to hit rock bottom, and they're not right there yet. I think the Nets I think things could be much positive. They'll be a bad team next year, but they could be much positive going into the summer of 2025 than it is the summer of 2024, because you have cap space and you'll have picks, and maybe then another star will want to come and play. But I hear you, Mike. I see your face. You're like, man, we got to go through this again. We got to do this again.
That's why I was thinking about stretching him, a year or two ago for the Nets, but I don't know.
Yeah, I would have. Now with Ben, I think the best case scenario is he doesn't play, so he doesn't disrupt any of the chemistry, and you just have him essentially not there, so you can figure out your roster what it looks like. Because him playing is not. It's just not happening. But 2 years ago, had this idea of why stretch him out at that point when let's just see what you have. Like, if you catch lightning in a bottle and he comes back and he gives you something, you're getting an all NBA performer. So at least you have to take the chance. And it was a bad chance and it didn't work. And what you said earlier, Dexter, is to construct a roster when somebody's making $40 million and doesn't play with a league that's based on a salary cap is extremely difficult. It hurts. Like, oh, let me have I have a budget, and each month $40 of that budget is just automatically taken away, right? You're just like, well, now my budget's way smaller, and that huge chunk of it goes to nothing, and that's
To nothing, right?
to nothing. To Instagram videos of great triceps and biceps. Shout out Ben Simmons. You got great arms, but like, does nothing for the fan base at this point. Like, I'm sorry, it's sad too, because you think of like Harden and Kyrie, and their relationship went south because of everything that happened. Opinions aside, that happened, and boom, Harden's like, I'm out of here. And then Marks makes the deal, gets Simmons, and they basically traded, I don't even say, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, 3 first or 4 first round draft picks for nothing. And that is, even beyond the Harden trade, that's the part of it where it's like they got nothing out of that but one playoff run. I wish Harden could have just kind of wrote it out with Kyrie and saw like, hey guys, this is a pocket in time. This is not forever. Like, let's just get through this. We'll all 3 be back together. Maybe they won't win a title, but it would be better than this. Kind of pins back just to the same points. It's just this frustration level of never know. Now having debates like in the right ones, it sucks. I mean, and again to see Alex smile, like,
yeah,
oh,
no,
man,
I was actually going to say something positive. A way that the Nets can get out of this faster is that you get a team that wants to blow it up and has their draft picks, and they take on Ben Simmons for 1 year, and you get a star in return or a half a star, let's say like a Bridges level star, maybe a marketing kind of guy, and you get that guy because that team wants to blow it up and tank. You know what I mean? I'm just throwing out a player there that can match. That's the one way, because that team now, you get Ben Simmons, who's a nothing, and you want to tank the year because you want to get, Cooper, what's his name, the kid coming out next year, and you want to get him. Yeah, thank you. And you want to get him, and you're just like, all right, well, let's have Ben Simmons. What better way to tank than to get Ben Simmons? Get rid of this all-star level player, and we'll send him to the Nets, and then the Nets like could put a Band-Aid on it, and like you said, Mike, you'll go to like a Trae Young, where it's like you're going to 46 to 50 wins. Like, yeah, it's fun, but you know what? You take that step where then maybe the next guy wants to see come with Trae Young and Claxton and Mikal Bridges, and then you could take a step that way. So that's another way that a positive spin that could happen for the Nets.
Yeah, it won't happen.
You're right, Alex, though. You need a very specific team. You need a team that's, like you said, they don't have to have cap space. They have to have a star that gets paid enough that can be close to matching salary.
Right.
So
like Zion or Brandon Ingram, somebody like that. I don't know, man. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just thinking of guys randomly.
Your thought process is 2 teams. Either a team that wants to blow it up.
Yeah.
Atlanta is kind of teetering on that area.
Yeah.
Or a team that's like, New Orleans might be on this area. We're not quite where we want to be, but we might want to tweak some things. We have a guy we want to build around where that could work. And I wonder if bringing in like a Brandon Ingram would be interesting. Trae Young, I have issues with him because he's not a good defender, and you can hunt him, but he's so dynamic offensively. It's interesting because if you need that perfect team that wants to blow it up. Chicago's another team that comes to mind, but I don't know what they would want to give you. They don't have anything that you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
LaVine.
You don't want LaVine. Nah. Yeah.
No.
I actually said the Nets, it would be interesting, but at the same time, it's like you're just trading, like Mike said on maybe last episode of the one before, where he's like, you're essentially trading Ben Simmons for Ben Simmons, so it's like you could be doing the same thing, and that's why I don't want the Knicks to get LaVine. I mean, DeRozan would be nice, but how are you getting these guys? You got to give up assets for these guys, and how are you fitting it all in the salary cap when you got to bring all your guys back? And that's, bringing it back to the Knicks is like, that's why I feel like running it back is the best option, but it is what it is.
I agree.
And I agree. There's a lot of relief on my end when the Knicks got eliminated. Shout out to the Pacers, who, by the way, had 2 more win total from Vegas than the Nets did in the preseason, and ended up going, to the Eastern Conference Final. So
yeah, because of some injuries they got there. A couple teams got hurt.
Trade for Siakam. See that it gives me a little bit of hope. But Dexter, we appreciate all of your time. I would say for you, I know the series right now is 2-0. Boston over Dallas. But with the Porzingis injury and everything that's happening, just your impressions of the first two games of the finals and where you see this thing going.
Yeah, I predicted Boston at 6 in this series. I know a lot of people jumped on the Mavericks, and there was also this school of thought. I'm sure you guys saw it through the playoffs. Oh, Boston, they're playing with their food. They're now blowing teams out.
Right,
And
right, right,
I
right.
tech I you've seen that, right? And I
Yeah,
texted somebody during the Pacers series. This was even when Halliburton was out. And I said, you know what? These close games are actually helping Boston. I think it's good that they're playing these close games and they're learning to win them close and close them out. And their top 6, obviously so good. Now things change without Porzingis. Now this is probably relative to the other competition they face, Dallas is the toughest competition they'll have without Porzingis. They got by the Pacers and they got by that. And Al Horford's been great, even though he's old. He's, figuring out ways to do this. But I just still think the Celtics, they're just too deep. They're too good defensively. Jaylen Brown's playing good. People are getting on Jason Tatum way too much. He hasn't shot the ball well in the first 2 games, but you got to look at the other stuff he's doing. He's got 20 rebounds. That's 10 per game. He's got 17 assists. He's been driving and kicking. He's been a willing passer. That's opening up the floor for other guys. So I've actually liked how he's played. He just hasn't hit his shots. And I think that's what's scary. They've won without him not hitting his shots. And you got to think a Tatum game is coming.
Mm-hmm.
So it wouldn't shock me now if they won this in 5. It wouldn't shock me at all if they won in 5. I think Boston's a better team. I think there was a way for Dallas to win this, but I think everybody's like, oh, they got the 2 best players on the floor. And I think Luka is the best player on the floor. I'm a big Luka Doncic fan, but the best team is Boston. They're just deeper. They're more cohesive defensively. Their role players know exactly what they're doing. And it sucks for the Mavs because their role players have been fantastic throughout these playoffs, but you're seeing PJ Washington's not hitting the shot now. Derek Lively is getting punked a little bit down there, even though I think he's a really good young center. Yeah, I think this is Boston. I think Boston's still going to win this series. I think Dallas will make these next couple of games more competitive. I do not think it'll be as easy. But see, this is where I trust Boston. Boston's been in some tight games in these playoffs, and I think so is Dallas, to their credit, to be fair. They had some really close games too, the first 3 games against Minnesota. But I really think Boston is gonna figure out a way to get this done, even without KP. That news blows for KP. I don't know how you feel, Alex. I still like seeing KP do good, but
yeah,
yeah, it's tough because I think he's such an X factor for them. If he's on the floor,
yeah.
the way they could play 5 out is so tough to guard. So yeah,
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was saying this before in our little intro before you came on that I didn't want Porzingis to come back to the Knicks, and I still had that hatred holding on, and I'm like, no, 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 never, never, never. But now, like, he keeps getting hurt at this point. Like now, and then he's back in the finals, and I'm just like, you know what? Like, good for him. And then he gets hurt. It's just like, well, this is the guy that it is. And with Porzingis, the Celtics, are gonna smoke the Mavericks. But with him banged up, it could go 6. Like I thought Celtics in 6 as well. You were talking about the best player in the series. Like Luka is definitely the best player in the series, but then it's Tatum, and then it's Kyrie, but then the next 3 guys are Celtics. 3-4 guys are Celtics.
Right.
So it's just like the Mavericks are very top heavy, and especially with Porzingis. I mean, especially Porzingis, the Celtics are pretty much like unbeatable right now for the Mavericks. But we wanted to end it with a couple Twitter questions that we got from some fans who put it out. So we have we'll do some Knicks ones first, and then we'll go to the Nets ones. So James Casson, he's at James Casson 4. What's your best case scenario offseason for the Knicks?
I think the best case scenario offseason for Knicks is that they're able to keep OG, they're able to keep Hartenstein, and maybe it really depends a lot on what they do with Bogdanovich, whether they pick up that $20 million option. Maybe they make a small trade for a rotation player to help add some depth to their bench. I think that's the best case scenario this offseason, and I think it would be actually the good offseason for them.
Okay. And then a really quick one, Mike. I know you wanted to get to the Nets one, but one more. James Celestin at Rebirth Chaos 09. He goes, what should the Knicks do with their 2 first-round picks? And Tibbs will not want a team with a few rookies on the roster. Also, how will they improve their depth? So basically, like putting it all together.
It's so funny he brings up that last point about how they improve their depth, because I think the way they could improve their depth is by drafting both of these first-round picks.
Right.
I wonder if the Knicks draft, and they have, I think, 38 overall. I wonder if they keep all these picks. heard that they want to trade at least one. It wouldn't shock me if they trade one to add future assets, maybe another first and another second down the road. I think they do keep one. I think they draft one, and I think they draft somebody in the second round and maybe see if they can get a steal or flyer there. I wouldn't be mad with that, but I do think, to answer the question, I think the way to add some of the depth is getting somebody young that you think can play. Now, where Knicks fans, I think, should be encouraged is they've actually done a pretty good job in the back end of the draft the last couple of years. Yeah. Quentin Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, Mitchell Robinson, Miles McBride. These are all late first round, early second round picks. Quickly. So they've done a good job in that area. And so the Knicks have shown me they can find the talent and developed in that area, which I mean, if it was me, if I was running things, I'm drafting both players. I'm taking both first round picks on there. Tibbs, I think maybe is asking too much. You probably want him to get one. But I think what they do is they draft one, they take another one, and try to get some future assets that can help them for a trade.
And it also could be a salary cap thing that they don't want to use the picks. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to.
Because you also got to look at the second apron and get close to there. And do you want to have to pay and then extend somebody 3 years from that? Yeah, so you're right about that too.
Yeah, that's the only thing.
Sort of touched on Donovan Mitchell, but this one's from Neil Aces 9915. Any word on Donovan Mitchell and the trade package from the Brooklyn Nets that was discussed in rumors? So looking at Mitchell and what would actually potentially be involved.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything on that front. I think what really comes down to is, I think, the day after the finals is when the Cavs can start talking extension talks with him. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the real thing for me on Donovan Mitchell. It's really about, does he want to stay in Cleveland? If he doesn't want to stay in Cleveland, I think the Cavs are going to move real quickly, and I think they'll get something done by the draft, or if not the night of the draft. If he does want to stay in Cleveland, I think it's less likely. He's not going anywhere. I think it really comes down to that. The thing about them is they have a tough situation because it all hinges upon what he does. They just got rid of their coach. They've got a lot of things to figure out. And so I don't think the Donovan Mitchell trade scenario is going to be clear until we know what it is he wants to do. I'm telling you guys, keep an eye to all the news breakers, because shortly after the finals, that's going to be one of the first biggest pieces of news you're going to hear this offseason, which is what they're talking about. What are they willing to give him for an extension? Does he really want to be there? But I will say this. I'd be stunned if Brooklyn was not at the top of his list if he doesn't want to be in Cleveland. I think it would make a lot of sense for him to want to come to Brooklyn.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Celtics to win in 4, just so we can get to the offseason at this point, so we can just get into our team.
Get started. Yeah.
Unless we get some epic series, which I don't expect at this point. I'm like, let's just get to it so we can get our news.
Just get to it.
Nets and Knicks, and start to.
It's been an awful playoffs anyway, with the injuries and everything everywhere. So
a lot of injuries. You're right.
But, Dexter, we appreciate your time. Make sure everybody, I'm sure if you listen to this, already do all the amazing work you do with SNY, New York Post, some of the great interviews that you can check out online. Dexter, we appreciate some time coming on, and just tell Alex one thing for me. That Nets Bucks game 5, when Durant hit that shot, that the arena was loud. Barclays Center didn't get loud.
I'll tell you something about that real quick. I'll never forget that game, because I got up at halftime to go get some food or something, and I ran into Michael Grady, who at the time was still at the sideline, and Grady and I are really good friends. So I ran into him in the concourse, and we're talking. And he's like, "Man, that first half, I don't know, man. It just sucked the air out of the arena." And the second half, we all know how that went and how crazy that was. That was as loud as I've ever heard the Barclays. And I've covered a lot of games there. And that was as loud as I heard the Barclays. Now, it's not as loud right now, for good reason. For good reason. It's not as loud right now.
Yes.
Understandable. Yeah. And I know Mike doesn't like this. It was a little embarrassing. I took my daughter to a Knicks Nets game. We went to Barclays. And I think this was in January. And
it was bad.
It was like 90% Knicks. I never even saw Barclays. It was like Madison Square Garden in Brooklyn. It was
that's what they talked about on the Roommates, where Mikal Bridges was like, I felt like I was at MSG. And Mike, that pissed Mike off.
It really was like that. But Mike is not wrong. And Mike, I assume you were at that game too.
I was not.
But I'm telling you, that was the loudest and energized. I heard it. It was also just good to hear New York back in that way and the energy they gave following the pandemic.
Sure.
But it was live. It was live in there. And after that game, I remember talking to my man Grady about it, and we were just like, man, the crowd really turned up here. Like they were so full of energy. He said in his time of working with the Nets, he had never heard it like that, like the way it was buzzing. So we'd like to see that again for Brooklyn.
Yeah.
See, Alex, I don't take it. I take it. I'm making some judgments here. I take it that you're the kind of person that doesn't really like to see the Nets fan happy. You want to see them miserable. See, I knew it. I read you right.
Look, Mike, he's one of my best friends. Mike, I want him to be happy.
You care about
Mike. We become really close. Like I care about Mike. Like when the Nets do well, I'm happy for him, but I'm not happy. You know what I'm saying? But it's a weird. Like I can separate both. I can compartmentalize. I
got it.
You know, Mike can't though. Mike doesn't give a damn if I'm happy or not. He just wants the Knicks to lose. But I'll end it with this. So you said the Barclays Center in that game was the loudest you ever heard the Barclays Center. Yeah, and you've been to a bunch of Knicks playoff games at this point. Which arena is louder? Settle it for us right now, bad weather fans. Dexter Henry. Which arena gets louder?
There's nothing like the Garden during a playoff game. I will say
Thank you.
There's nothing like the Garden during a playoff game. The Nets fans brought it, but it was not like no. I was at every Knicks home playoff game this year except for game 1 of the first round, and yeah, they sorry, Mike, they didn't come close to that. But that's no shade to the Nets fan. That's not shade. It's not shade at all. And I still feel like the Nets are growing their base in Brooklyn. And I think as long as there's consistent winning, look, we cannot act like there wasn't excitement around Kyrie and KD being there, because there was. And I was at some of those games too, and there was. But is it the Garden? No, and it's not going to be, unless the Nets start winning and win a lot more than the Knicks. So that can happen. But Alex, I know you don't want to see that because that'll make you unhappy. Mike, I know you want to see that because it would make you happy. So I mean, somebody's going to be happy and somebody's not. That's it.
Yeah, it was fun for a little bit, when they're both good. But you know what? We'll get back there one day, I'm sure.
But it would be cool if both were great at the same time. I mean,
I agree with that.
I think it would be way bigger than anything Yankees, Mets, Giants, Jets, and I don't know enough about the hockey to give an honest answer. But compared to the other two, I feel like it would get fun, like in a good way.
I think it would be fun, and I think it would make your podcast amazing, right? You guys already do a great job here on the podcast, and I think it's unique, and I like it. Thanks for having me on. But I think it would be fun to I'd be wanting to tune into you guys to know how you guys are going to battle when there's some real competitive beef there. I'd like to see that.
That's how, when we first started, that's how it was going in the year after the pandemic. It was really rolling. But all right, Dexter, thanks so much for coming on. Bad Weather fans, really appreciate it. Hope to have you on again soon. And
anytime, guys.
Keep up the great work everywhere. So.
Thank you.